Hello and welcome to the Design Rescue Show, where we take a behind the scenes look at the unique journeys of creative professionals. And we learn about the choices they've made that have shaped their career paths. Hello, everyone. Thank you again for joining us today. I am your host, David Block. And today, joining us, we have Rachel Kim. Welcome to the show, Rachel.
Thank you for having me on.
Sure. I appreciate you joining us. Today, we're going to be talking about your career journey through the creative world. And so to start, what I'd like to do, I want to just summarize your work history and the roles that you've participated in, that you've played in the creative industry. You started as a graphic design intern. Then you were a graphic designer and a photographer. You've been a design lead, a digital designer, a brand designer, and currently an art director. Is that right?
Yeah, it was quite a journey. Yeah.
Yep. Excellent. Okay. So what I'd like to do to start and go, I'd like to go all the way back to your education, to where you got your BFA.
Yeah, Illinois Urbana-Champaign.
Excellent. So you went for your BFA, and could you discuss a particular kind of a project that you participated in while you were at college that significantly kind of influenced the way that you approach design?
Sure, I can talk about that. Just to give a little bit of context, I went to the university because at that time I wasn't entirely sure if I wanted to pursue art. So I wanted to have some other options, and I decided to major in painting because at that time I thought it would give the most flexibility to try out anything I wanted to do in terms of conceptually. So I think there was one assignment that I really enjoyed doing, which was in my senior year. And basically, we had a prompt that we could interpret it in any way we want. And the prompt was, how can different ways of applying paint stimulate or bring up emotions of the painter? Um, and that was kind of open to like you can make a painting about it, sculpture, installation, whatever you wanted. So I decided to bring like a huge canvas, bought some water balloons, called up some friends, and then we just filled the water balloons with paint, and we decided to just throw it on the canvas and have fun with it. And that was kind of my project. And for the critique, I had that video recording of that experiment playing on the background, and then I bought like a huge fabric canvas on the wall and just had our classmates do the same thing. And that was just part of my, like one of my final projects in senior year. And I really enjoy that because as a person, I really enjoy doing experiments, trying new things, and I'm just generally a curious person. So I think that was one project that, like, still to this day, kind of like it makes sense, like why I enjoy doing like art directing and why I enjoy doing ideation and concept. Yeah, that project comes to my mind.
Excellent. All right. So you've worked with a wide range of companies, and I'd love
Yeah.
to hear in your early career experience. Could you talk about projects that gave you a challenge, a creative challenge that more than most, right? Every project has a challenge, but one that gave you a significant challenge, and how it sort of shaped your approach to art direction.
That's a great question. Um, I would say I think I also want to give a little bit of context in the earlier on of my career experience because it wasn't like smooth sailing. So after graduating with painting, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I had a period of time where I was kind of like, okay, I'm just gonna try pursuing design for 3 years. And if it doesn't work out, I'm gonna pivot and try something else. So during the 3 years of experience, like during that time, that's when I was taking on like a bunch of internships or I was taking community college classes and I was just building a portfolio while working on some like part-time jobs. Um, so that was kind of like the process that I was going through in the beginning. And when I joined Bloom Nation for like that was my first full time job. as a designer, I was, I think, challenged with a lot of things because I went in as a junior designer. It was a small startup, and a lot of the things were like scrappy. You had to figure it out on your own. So every day was kind of different. And I would say one of the things I remember really challenged me was when we had to do photo shoots and video shoots in house, and we had to kind of figure it out on our own. So that meant like going out to farmers market outside and buying a bunch of flowers and taking the photos in-house. And I didn't really know how to touch DSLR at the time. So just renting an equipment from Sammy's camera and figuring it out from there. Also, like we wanted to do video for the homepage. So then I had to figure out like, okay, how do I take the video from this DSLR and how are we gonna edit this and how are we gonna optimize it to put it on the website? So um yeah, I would say like all the projects that we faced as a small marketing team was a challenge, but it was a good challenge because it was a lot of wearing different hats and figuring it out on my own.
Right. Well, that's actually a lot of how I personally, have gained my experience is just by jumping in, whether or not I had
Hmm.
that experience in my background. I
Right.
would just jump in with both feet and try to learn it. I think that's the best way to do it.
I really think so. That's really the only way that you're gonna get familiar with the process and feel confident in it, I think.
Absolutely. Okay. So let's move forward just a little bit in time to your experience with Tom's. And, when you led the design effort for the email templates during the 2021 rebrand, how did you make sure that the new designs aligned with the company's refreshed brand identity, this new identity?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that was a really good time for me to experience the rebrand of Tom's as a designer because, it's an iconic brand, but we were going through like a pretty heavy rebranding process. So we worked with a branding agency. So they've already had done all the work on, um, obviously in collaboration with Tom's on the brand guideline, and it was very thorough, and we needed that. So when I was tasked with refreshing all the email templates that we had to do, obviously I'm working with the art director and creative director there and the stakeholders, but my main focus was emphasizing on the using the new beautiful imagery that we had, and then also making sense of the brand design elements that were newly created to incorporate into the email design system. So while I was doing that, the questions I was asking was what would be a unique element to add to Tom's? What were some of the intentional changes that came with the rebrand that makes it special to Tom's? And then system wide, like would certain types of templates or would the template that I was building out, would that work with rest of the PDPs or campaign imagery, some of the other things that we wanted to do in the future in terms of promo, would that all make sense?
So did you have to take all new product photography with this new rebrand, or was it you work with just existing assets?
So we didn't take the new product imagery because there was already a team that does it
I
every once in a while. But the imagery that I was talking about is the lifestyle images that the art director and creative director took with the refresh because with the rebrand, it also came like a new direction for imagery refresh. So like the see, look and feel also changed. So that
got it.
was kind of like an important aspect of the rebrand.
I see. Excellent. Okay. All right. And so moving on again, thank you for that. But moving on to the another project, another company that you've worked with, which was Bloom
Yeah.
Nation. So I'd like you to talk a little bit about the Bloom Nation project, and when you worked on the seasonal homepage assets, how
Mhm.
did you balance the creative storytelling with the commercial objectives of the brand?
Yeah. Um, That's a good question. So for the video homepage, I think I mentioned a little before, like we were testing out different things. And at that time, I think it was like 2016 or something like that, motion on website was like a thing. And there was more data on like bigger engagement with like video, like full wide motion, things like that. So um our founder had some good ideas in terms of like, let's try this. Can we tell the story on the homepage? Um, and then Bloom Nation itself, it's a tech startup on Floral. So it's like a floral tech startup that creates platform for florists and then also consumers to buy flowers and send to each other. So, and the story that we were selling as a company was we partner with local florists and there is a very handcrafted element to it versus like a stock flower that you might see somewhere else. Like there's a very like handcraftedness and local small business aspect that you're partnering with by buying off of Blue Nation. So that was the story and that was the brand. So by focusing on that, which is the commercial aspect and brand, I like story of it, we um, we had like short clips of, I think we had like evergreen videos, so it was showing like from beginning to the end where like farm to table, like florists making the flowers, someone clicking on it and buying the flower. I think you can even see it on the current website right now. And then it goes on to the delivery and it gets received. So that was the evergreen concept. And then on seasonal, because seasonal flowers were pretty big in terms of Christmas or Thanksgiving, we would provide a similar storyline, but that's appropriate for that season at the time to showcase on our website. So that was kind of the approach that we took. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. I know that was
Yeah.
kind of a weird sort of, that was posed a little bit strange, but you did a great job. That was exactly what I was
Thank
looking
you.
for. Yeah, it's just really wanted to find out essentially how you did tell the story, do the
Mhm.
storytelling, and still sell the product, in the same way, and get that response that you're looking for, that sort of thing. Now, my next question for Bloom Nation, how did you go about, what was the creative process that you used to conceptualize that 3D floral installation campaign?
Yeah, that was a really fun project. And I think it's still up there
Mhm.
in Third Street Promenade. So basically, at that time, we were sharing an office space with another startup company, and it was that founder's idea. So she kind of threw it out there. So all credit to her. But basically, we happen to have this free access to like 6 bulletin boards in this hallway of Third Street Promenade, which is really amazing because there's always a lot of traction there. So the idea was kind of like, let's partner with some of our best florists and each of them can make like an installation and then one of them will make it in our own in-house, which I did because with fine arts background I think I really enjoyed working with my hands too. So that was kind of the prompt that we were going to have, and then let's make it into kind of like an art gallery installation, and we'll have like Instagram handles for people to get awareness into what Bloom Nation as a brand is, and then also we'll give yeah, we'll have space for the florists to put in their business and business handles. So that's kind of how we approached it. And overall, I think it went really well because we would see people walk around the hallway and take pictures, kind of really enjoy the work, almost like they were at an art gallery. If we were to do it again, though, I think I might want to think about doing like, it would be fun if we did like a social media campaign and contest so that like they would win something if they were to post or win. Or if because it was right by Third Street Promenade, if we like gave out like flyers or something like that, like get guerrilla marketing so that
Yeah.
they would get more exposure to what we were doing. I think that could have worked really well too. But Yeah, that
Absolutely.
was kind of the process of how that came about.
Excellent. Thank you. And so you said it's still up there right now, right?
It's still actually up there. It's been like six years, I think, over. Yeah.
Well, that's a testament to the work. That's fantastic. That's great. If you're enjoying this video, please take a moment to hit that like button, leave a comment below, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss our future videos. Thank you. So, all right, fantastic. So now the next question that I have, this is fun. All right, so you worked for Mattel on the Polly
Hmm.
Pocket project, which is awesome, right? I mean, that product has been around since I can remember. I mean, that's like the early 80s, right? I
Right.
mean,
Right.
or way back when. Maybe I can't remember when that came out, but I was in high school, I think. You played a significant role on the digital experience for the global launch. Could you talk about the process of creating the digital assets and any challenges that you encountered in that project?
Yes. I really love that project too because I loved Polly Pocket growing up. So when they announced that, okay, we're gonna make a like new updated Polly Pocket and you're gonna help launch it, like that was like a dream come true for me. So I worked with a really great creative director. And basically, I was responsible for working on the UI aspect of it. So, like a lot of the visual aspect, the framework was already done with our UX designer. And they had a hodgepodge, like already loosely defined guideline for Polly Pocket. So there were already colors and graphic elements to use. So I was kind of tasked with working with few different options along with the direction that I received from creative director. Um, so we went with couple rounds of those design, um, and I think the challenge that I remember was because it was a big project and it's a big company, it involved like pretty hefty approval process. So I just remember, I couldn't just make one or two design and call it it. Like we went through rounds of revisions and
Right.
there had to be some reasoning of like why it's placed there, like or what can we change to make it more cohesive to the brand launch that we were already having. So I would say, yeah, that was kind of the process.
Right. There's a lot of legal involved as well, or was it more approvals of the creative?
I would think there is. It was like we had a team for I think everything. But what I was more exposed to was like design aspect, the UX aspect, and then brand approval aspect.
I see. Excellent. Okay, cool. Fun. That sounds like a really fun project. So let's move on. So your professional growth and future vision. That's what my next question has to do with. So your portfolio is filled with a lot of diverse kind of projects, everything from photography to web
Mhm.
design. And I'm just curious how each of these sort of roles contribute to your growth as a creative professional. Yeah. How did it help to build who you are today?
Yeah, I would say I think like when I think about my experience, I was exposed to like different industries. So um, I was exposed to like consumer goods. There was tech. There was footwear, fashion, e-com. So I think those things were really helpful for me to kind of get exposure to as a designer. Like obviously the design principle is the same, but it was nice to see how different companies and different industries run their business and how the operation aspect is like. Um, in those different times of the jobs that I had in these companies, I always was driven by growth and learning, and I was very curious. So I took on projects. I tried my best to take on projects that I wanted to learn more about. So I mentioned at Bloom Nation, we had to wear a lot of different hats and we had a small marketing team. So from there, I think I got my hands on a lot of different marketing aspect of design. And I realized I really enjoyed, like, I really liked figuring out how to do photo shoot and video. Um, and that kind of continued on, that interest continued on when I went to Tom's. And I witnessed like how regularly they did lifestyle shoots or even like PDP, like on foot, like photos. And I was like, oh wow, this is how like footwear companies can do lifestyles and how that affects like fashion brands. um, so I would say by tapping into the projects that I really wanted to learn more about, I was able to kind of expose myself into something that I want to keep continue learning and expand upon. And also like that also made me kind of see how people are in different roles. So as a designer in this type of company versus like an art director at this company or creative director. So I think that also helped me to see like, okay, I think I really enjoy doing conceptual aspect of it. And I think I want to continue learning more on photo aspect of it. Like what can I continue to do to get more of that work? And I think that also led me to my current role as an art director because yeah, because I enjoyed like the heavy aspect of ideation. Yeah.
I see. Okay. And so do you have any sorry, any hopes to do any future projects that working with some technology or some area of design that you haven't had much experience with?
I think I'm always open to learn new things. But I forgot to mention, like, along the past, I don't know, 7 years or 8 years that I was in design, in the marketing, I've always taken classes on the side. So, like, right now, I'm gonna enroll in like another class on lighting and photography. So, I've always like tapped into classes that I can expand my knowledge on and grow in.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I would say like I'm open. I will continue learning what I want to learn, and I'll probably take a class on it if I'm very curious about it.
Excellent. So, I actually want to take a step backwards. I'm not backwards, a side step. How about that? To a
Yeah.
question about your creative process. So,
Mm.
obviously, every project is different, and it requires a different sort of routine. But is there, do you have a creative process that you like to follow that is a routine in your daily life, in your projects?
Yeah, that's a good that's a good question. Um, I would say for the most part, let's say for example, we have to start like a brand campaign for something. Um, Or there's like a new project where we need to think of like concepts for photo shoot. Thinking always kind of goes into like coming up with the most different ideas. So, okay, sorry. I guess I need to be more like precise. Let's say I'm coming up with a marketing campaign for like a new product launch in
Mhm.
spring, then whatever industry that I'm working in, whether it's tech or like a clothing company or whatever, I think about the brand, our brand personality and design elements first. And then I usually look at like competitors, what the competitors are doing, and then how it looks in the industry. So if it's tech industry, like what are some of the brands that are doing well? Like what is the typically like response that audience and consumers get? Um, and what kind of campaigns have worked well in the past. So that's kind of like my research period where I look at a bunch of different things. I look up stuff. I go on Pinterest, and then I look at like, do we have any other examples in the past? Then after that, I come up with few different concepts. So sometimes it's very safe. It's like something we've done before, but sometimes it's really different, like it's kind of out of the park. I'm not sure if this kind of design or concept will work with our company, but I thought it was cool. So I will think of that. And then I might think of another idea where like it's like a mix between the two. So after I get there, depending on the process, I would talk to like my team or creative director I'm working with, or I might just start and come up with like some visual elements to that. So like maybe borrowing our brand and then mixing that into the concept. Um, and then after I have that kind of visual element, I'll share, get feedback from whoever the stakeholder is or whoever my team members can help ideate that concept a little better. And then we will go into like execution and where this is going to go, how it's going to live. So that would be kind of broadly process of like how I would approach like a new prompt or campaign ideas.
I see. Okay, excellent. So we've made it to the end of the meeting.
Wow.
I know, right? That went very
Yeah.
fast. It was very, very quick. And thank you so much once again for being a part of this. And so my last question has to do with advice you might have for new designers, new creatives in the industry. So as we've said before, you've had a lot of experience in the creative industry. I'd like to know if you have any advice for new designers just starting out, considering how the landscape of design is ever changing. The mediums we use is always something new is coming up, and coming around the
Right.
corner. So I'd like to know if you have any advice for new designers.
Sure. I think first, I think the best thing would be to try as many different things as possible, and figure out what you don't like and what you like. So just try different things in design or marketing and see um, what you want to keep learning. And then that's when you can keep like going into that direction and figure it out. I would say you can reach out to other people for feedback on your work. I used to cold message people on LinkedIn when I was building up my portfolio, and people are very helpful, even though like you're like a stranger to them. So I think you can tap into design community that way. And then secondly, I would say um, I think just to remember that like we're all just figuring things out. Nobody's kind of like out of reach for you to get there. So what I mean by this is in the beginning of my career, I was pretty discouraged. And I remember talking to somebody at the art center, and I think he could tell that I was like discouraged and I put people on this pedestal that I couldn't get to. And I think he was probably in his like 50s or 60s. And he was kind of telling me, like, hey, you know that we're all regular people and we're still figuring things out on our own. And I feel like the more like older I get, the truer it is. Like I'm still figuring things out. Um, and I think like along the way, the type of people you're going to meet is going to be really important. Like if it was somebody you could learn from, even if it was a span of 3 months, like I think it was a worth it for your journey. So I would also think about like how important it is to build that relationship.
That's excellent. That's a really good point. Um, and something actually, quite honest, something I talk about with my students all the time. And if you teach a class, I don't know if you've ever taught a class before, but if you teach
Mm.
anything, that is actually like illuminated, like what the things that you don't know, right? And so
Mhm.
I've been doing this for 30 years, and when I talk about stuff with my students, there are times that I just tell them, listen, I'm still learning. I don't know this stuff yet. So,
Right.
but it's all about continuing that education and trying to, keep on top of everything.
Yeah, it's so true. Just knowing that like you're still figuring it out, and then everyone else you see also is figuring it out on their own. So yeah,
That's
I
right.
think that's good to remember.
Excellent. Thank you once again for being a part of this show and being a part of my series and talking about your career path. Thank you for being here, Rachel.
Thank you. It was really my pleasure to share, and I'm just here anytime to share more. Yeah.
Excellent.
So thank you so much.